Now, when most of us think of the house of Xerjoff, a handful of select fragrances come to mind, like your Herba Pura, Naxos, Lyra, Torino 21, maybe even Alexandria 2. You know, the popular ones. But if you look on Fragrantica, you'll see that Xerjoff has released over 200 fragrances since the brand began. So there's a lot to talk about from Xerjoff, and as you can see by the title of this video, there's many fragrances that go mostly undiscussed. So I'm here to shed some light on just 7 of them that I have in my collection that are not 100% unknown, but they definitely pale in comparison as far as discussion goes compared to some of the fragrances I mentioned just earlier. Just about all of, if not all of these fragrances will be available at fragflex/fragbuy. There's going to be links in the description if you want to check them out. If you don't know about what this website is, you must be new here. Maybe you're new to fragrances in general. Welcome. One of the biggest questions I get from newbies to the community is, where's the best place to buy fragrances for good prices? Honestly, these 2 websites, which are one company, answers that question to a T. You're going to find just about every fragrance you might be looking for at some of the best and most competitive prices around the internet, with excellent customer service, all kinds of deals and specials and sales and reward programs and all kinds of things to keep you coming back to find the fragrances that you want the most. And they have quite a robust Xerjoff catalog. So again, I'm going to highlight 7 underrated, under-discussed Xerjoff fragrances that they carry, and I want to know what you think of them down in the comments as you're watching. How about we dive right into it? In no particular order, first one up here is technically a flanker to a very popular fragrance. In fact, I could have mentioned this at the top of the video, Tony Iommi Monkey Special. That one got a ton of hype when it dropped. I don't know if people are really talking about it as much as they were when it came out, but nonetheless, its flanker has gotten maybe even a little bit more quiet since its release. This is called Iommi Deified. And the little bit of experience I have with the original, this hardly reminds me of it. I don't know if I would call it exactly a flanker, but I'm not mad because it's different. It's different enough from the original to where if you wanted both, it wouldn't be redundant. This is a fruity but dark leathery fragrance. You have spicy warm saffron accenting a juicy apple note with an underscoring of musky, earthy leather. It is very leather forward, but it doesn't smell too rough. It doesn't smell animalic or anything like that. It's very easy on the nose, but it definitely has personality. It definitely is fairly loud. It's not shy. This is a dark fragrance you want to wear on cooler evenings, especially during the fall and winter when you want to make more of a statement. It is maybe a little bit seductive in a way, but it leans a little bit more on bad boy vibes, a little bit more on authoritative, provocative, statement making vibes. And again, doesn't get a whole lot of talk these days for whatever reason. It became pretty quiet pretty quickly, but I think it deserves some love. It's a good fragrance. It's fairly unique and it's really enjoyable to wear. That is Tony Iommi Deified. Up next is one of my absolute favorite fragrances from the house of Xerjoff. This one was love at first sniff. Sometimes I go back and forth trying to decide if I prefer this one or its original. Today, it's this one. The original gets plenty of limelight, which is why I decided to include this one in this video. Mefisto Gentiluomo from their Casa Marati line. If you want to smell like a clean, sophisticated, dapper gentleman with a soft side, this is one of the top considerations I could ever recommend. It is stunning to me. I love the soapy clean vibe it has. It's lavender, it's other florals like iris and violet. So there's this kind of posh, powdery leaning, somewhat sweet floral vibe, but it doesn't smell like a bouquet because there's plenty of citruses and plenty of musk and sweet warm amber to kind of sandwich it together to keep it clean, to keep it somewhat bright and fresh, but with a lot of body, a lot of substance to this fragrance. Some people may not like it because yes, it does lean a little bit powdery, but I think that does not detract from the masculine quality of this fragrance. Again, if you like to have that clean vibe, clean cut, clean shaven, clothes that fit you, you want people to take you seriously, and you want to just smell pleasant without smelling basic, this is a phenomenal one to consider. Once again, not enough talk for Mefisto Gentiluomo. I want to know what you think if you've tried it. Now, when I see the name of this fragrance, I can't help but think Fadeaway Jumper, Black Mamba, 8 and 24. I call it Kobe. I'm sure it's called Kobe, but I just call it Kobe because rest in peace. Not completely unknown, but does not get anywhere near as much talk as some of the others. This is an interesting one. This one may not be for everyone. It took me a second to decide if I like this fragrance. And all that tells me is that it's different. It is its own thing in a way. And what I mean by that, there's a sharp green bitter quality to this fragrance. When you first spray it, that reminds me a little bit of Neo. A little bit of the green freshness of Neo, and I think there's petitgrain in here blending with some neroli, and I think Neo is pretty neroli forward, so that could tie them together, and it's the same perfumer. But it immediately separates itself with a more white floral vibe in there, almost more powdery, posh, taking over the clean green, which does start to fade fairly quickly, and it becomes kind of animalic, musky, sweet, warm, and ambery. And to me, it has this old school vibe. I can't place it, but it reminds me of some kind of vintage fragrance, but just with a whole lot more dimension. That warm, sweet, ambery depth separates it from those fragrances. So that may not appeal to all of you guys. I've seen people say that they don't like this fragrance for the first 10 minutes or so, and after that, the dry down's beautiful. I wouldn't say I don't like it for the first 10 minutes or so, but it is sharp, and I think it will take some getting used to. I like it, but I find it more intriguing than likable, if that makes sense. But I don't know. I'm so glad to have it. I look forward to getting to know it better and giving it some more limelight if I feel like it deserves it. But so far, it has my interest. It will be getting somewhere for me. And most importantly, I want to know what you think of Kobe, if you have it or if you've tried it. We got a powerhouse here. This one is also kind of mature, slightly vintage leaning, but not quite as old school feeling as the previous one. This one may not be for you all though, because it has cojones. This one will fill a room. It is so thick and rich. It will choke you out if you're not careful, because that's what it did to me. This is called Richwood. Richwood is beautiful. Now, not technically a fougere, but kind of leans in that direction to my nose in my wearing experience, of more of like an earthy fougere. Very patchouli forward, rich, creamy sandalwood, a little bit warm and sweet as well, but there's this touch of freshness, almost clean, but not quite aromatic, not quite super lavender forward. It reminds me of something like Beau de Jour without all the moss and the lavender, maybe even like Zeno from Davidoff. It kind of leans in that direction, but way more bottom heavy. That patchouli is right up front without being dank or too earthy or damp, but it's thick and it just fills out the fragrance and really just defines what this smells like. Very luxurious, very elegant. I would dress this up and I would not wear too much of it. But once again, the reason why it's here is because people don't talk about it enough, at least if you're asking me. So I'm gonna do my part and try to put Richwood on more of your radars. Now, granted, it is a fairly expensive fragrance, maybe more so than some other Xerjoff. So you gotta make sure you love it, especially for some of the prices you might find. But that being said, some of the best prices I've seen have been on Fragflex/FragBuy, which again will be linked in the description. But I wanna know if you're a fan of Richwood. Have you tried this one? Do you endorse it? Do you not like it? All is fair. Let me know. A lot of people are turned off by the sound of this fragrance because of incense. Not everyone loves incense, especially when it's forward. And I would call this an incense fragrance, but there's so much more going on here. It ultimately is this beautiful and very unique accord that has incense as a key part of the face. But again, much more than that. This is Zefiro. Zefiro is, yes, incense, but also white wine. There's this kind of effervescent, bright, somewhat booziness, but not overtly like rum or tequila or something like that. It's this sparkle. It's hard to really describe. There's a fresh spiciness that I think helps to balance out that incense, which is a cooling smokiness, but the touch of spice gives it a little bit more of an interesting texture, a little bit more of a accessibility factor, because cardamom tends to be very, very attractive. We're gonna talk about a cardamom-based fragrance here in a second. But one element of this fragrance that may rub some people the wrong way besides the incense is the carnation. Now, carnation is a spicy floral, and it is associated more with more old school fragrances, stuff that came out in the 90s and the 80s. And if you have any experience with those fragrances, then a part of Zefiro might remind you of that vibe, but I think it accents it very well. I think it's really well blended. Overall, it comes off as one accord. As I said, it's hard to kind of describe and cut it up as I'm trying to do here on camera, but it's lovely. It's so elegant. This is like daytime elegance, almost year round. Maybe not my favorite contender for the hottest days of the summer. No, there's better choices for that. Stuff like Renaissance from this same collection would do even better than that. But when it's not too hot, when it's a little bit more mild or even more cold, pretty much any other time of the year, Zefiro is lovely if you want that unique, elegant vibe that does not scream, that's not overwhelming, but is clearly present and clearly itself. Not enough talk and love for Zefiro. Again, is this a promise that you're gonna love it when you try it? You're smart. You know the answer to that. As promised, a cardamom forward fragrance that is new to my collection. This one has gotten a little bit of what I'd call sideline hype. I've had a number of you guys in my comments saying, where's this fragrance? Do you have this? Have you tried this? You gotta try it. Not a ton of you, but enough of you to where I'm like, you know what? I need to grab this. I need to see for myself what this little closet hype is all about, because it's very isolated. It's very small in comparison to the hype for a behemoth like Naxos. But this stuff is beautiful. I'm still getting to know it, so the jury's out, more to come, but I like it. I do easily consider it underrated. This is Starlight in this gorgeous bottle. Starlight, as I said, cardamom forward fragrance, very fresh, spicy, very, very cardamom heavy. Probably one of the most cardamom forward fragrances I have ever tried. If there's a note I can say that defines Starlight, it's cardamom. End of story. But there's more to it than that. There's some other spices, maybe clove, that adds a little bit of warmth behind that fresh, spicy cardamom. And there is some vanilla. There's like a ambery accord. There's almond. So there's a gourmand element to this. It is kind of sweet, warm, creamy, powdery, but not too powdery, which I was hoping it wouldn't be, because I don't love powdery. But it's not too powdery. It is more ambery, a little bit more dusty on my skin. Kind of delicious, but not all the way gourmand leaning, which is another one of my not so favorite characteristics. So far, this is checking the boxes for me. It is very specific. This is something I would have to be in the mood for. I gotta want cardamom because that is the face of this, but it is a cozy fragrance to wear for the cooler months, fall and winter. I can see this being very beautiful. A fragrance that needs more love. Again, I know there's a few of you guys who know this, who are gonna chime in the comments and say, yep, this is beautiful. Maybe it wasn't for you because maybe it was a little bit too powdery for you. So be it, there is no right or wrong here, but I think it deserves more talk. That is Starlight. Let me know if you're a fan. And our final fragrance, this came to me earlier this year. It was a relatively new release and it really surprised me. It kind of blew me away and I don't understand why more people still aren't really talking about this fragrance. In fact, I think I just heard they released a flanker to it, like a rosé flanker that I really want to try. Looks really interesting, but I'm talking about the original here. Xerjoff calls this Louis XV 1722. It's a collaboration fragrance with the House of Vinoge. I hope I'm saying that right, and I think they are perhaps the oldest, if not also the largest champagne library in the world. And gosh, this stuff is beautiful. I do get this almost brightness, bright, citrusy, a little bit tart, but it's mostly creamy and sweet right away. Creamy, sweet, and warm. A little bit of a bubbly nature. They gotta put champagne in this because of the collaboration. So yes, there's an almost bubbly, bright, somewhat sweet champagne vibe hovering in the middle there, but that is tamed by some hazelnut and coffee. There's a warm nuttiness. There's a creamy, woody muskiness that starts to come in from the bottom with sandalwood, with some cashmere. It's a relatively complex profile. There's enough elements that are a little bit different, but they all play together very well. However, it's not a loud scent. I find that it wears a little bit light on the skin, a little bit quiet. In fact, I think that's better than light. It wears quiet. It's present. It's there. It'll last me up to 8 hours or so, but it's not gonna scream and peel the paint and pull people's eyebrows off of their faces. If that's what you're looking for, then look elsewhere. This is elegant, very elegant, a little bit understated, kind of has daytime vibes. I see myself wearing white or some kind of light colors. Again, dressing refined, dressing sophisticated, not necessarily formal, and just having that pleasant vibe, and this suiting that so beautifully, especially when you go in to give people hugs. They're gonna smell this and it's just a great accent that doesn't scream for attention. A fairly unique fragrance that's so well done that is not getting much talk, and I think it deserves more. I hope this video is the beginning of that. That is Louis XV 1722. Let me know what you think. Do you find this to be underrated? How about these other fragrances? Let me know in the comments. And make sure you check them out at the links below.